Hello there, welcome to the green technology video session. So in this case, developing mitigative measures for a global reduction of the carbon. As we know that we are emitting the enough amount of the greenhouse gases to the atmosphere while you are converting from the raw material to the semi-finished and finished products. This is also neat, but we need to reduce the carbon emissions in this process by adopting the different kind of the strategies. So in each country, each individual have to contribute for the reduction of the carbon. So this what we are going to be say, the mitigative measures in this case, we know that the various mitigative measures that countries could take to reduce the global emissions. The accumulations are many and depends upon their location, their climate and their lifestyle and the other factors including the financial resources, right? So what the research is found that there is going to be a huge amount of the depositions are there, carbon emissions are there. That depends upon their climate, their locations and their lifestyle also, and sometimes the financial resources also is affecting in this case. So then general strategy what we are going to be, the stepwise approach to reduction is proposed, but it is necessary that all countries do something to reduce their emissions and facilitate absorption of the carbon from the atmosphere. This is going to be the mitigative measures are requesting the each country and each individuals, they need to be control the carbon emissions at the different levels. So then how it is going to be? So they are going to be reducing. So they are going to be proposing the different types of the strategies here. That's going to be improving the carbon sinks. The carbon sinks where it will absorb the carbon dioxide converted into the oxygen. So then with the best example is going to be the green belts or the number of trees we need to plant for every village as well as in the town system also. So then in this that is going to be the one of the best example, and then there is going to be carbon credits and carbon taxes and carbon caps they are going to be providing to the companies where they are going to be generating the different type of carbon emissions. So in this case what will happen, they are going to be giving a limitation to the company to produce this many number of components. So one country doing something and its neighboring country doing nothing is not a match. All do something in this case to protect the climate change. So then what our approach in developing the mitigative measures specifically for India is based on the belief that some scope of the reduction in emissions. Yes, India has the capability to reduce the carbon emissions. So then in this case India is going to be introducing like metropolitan industrial cities in India. Just the best example you can see the metropolitan cities, they are going to be generating because it has a lot of facilities, so that in and around of the metropolitan cities they are going to be developing the huge number of the factories and industries, while relatively a little scope if any exist in the village and small towns of India where the per capita emissions are already very low. So in this case the Indian government have to do something to reduce the carbon emissions. So then it needs a certain norms, already we do have that discussed. Yet we have to develop our village and small towns where India really resides. In this case, rather than concentrating on the metropolitan cities, we need to spread this development towards the village side as well as the second tier and third tier towns. So then in this case what will happen, the migration is going to be reduces and more employability we can create it at the villages side as well as the small towns, and further the emissions also going to be reduces in this process. And we need to identify what kind of industry we need to develop in these area locations. In this case what will happen, that company need the more training to that people, even for the educated people also. So then the poverty elevations has to therefore go hand in hand with the mitigations if public support is desired. In this case what will happen, it's not only the government involvement, at the same time from the individual level of the Indian people also have to contribute. Every Indian have to contribute, and we need to bring this system to the the Indian government also need to provide a proper education and proper training to that people, and hygienic environment they can create it. So then we join other countries. It's not only that India and within the Indian people, within India, they are going to be cooperating. At the same time, we need to cooperate to the other countries, and other countries also need to cooperate. In our India, we do have seen it was surrounded by the different kind of countries. So they have the different types of the lifestyles, different kind of the culture. So we need to understand their culture also, and we need to discuss what we are doing exactly, and we are expecting, we are trying to expect that those people also will get the benefit, and what they will do, and they are also trying to provide that that information, how they are adopting the situation, how they are reducing the carbon emissions. So then every measured proposal should be meet this test of the benefit of country before it is going to be adopted. Suppose India has adopted certain technology to reduce the carbon emissions. So then it must be cross-checked properly whether it is going to be executable or not. So that once it is going to be executable, so that we are going to be making that as a policies, and we are going to be providing. So in this case, what will happen? The Delhi government has started to cross-checking the odd number vehicles and even number of vehicles mobilizations because of the excessive pollution. As we know that pollution is going to be, levels are high, oxygen percentage is going to be reduced, so that the Delhi government has started to cross check, and they started implementing the odd as well as the even number of vehicles to pass. So it is going to be still, that is at the experimental stage. So then it would be true to say that what is good for the country like India is also likely to be good for the world at large also. Maybe whatever the methodologies we are developing, whatever the research and development we did it, maybe that is going to be helpful to not only the India, to the other states people also, so that we can transfer this technology at the low cost, and they are also going to be get the benefit from this one for the carbon emissions. So the established the Prime Minister Council for the National Action Plan. So in this case, what happened? There is a national action plan they have created to control the carbon emissions. So details which are given here, the India has already announced in the Paris climate program. So they are trying to reduce the carbon emissions 20 to 25% between 2020 to 2030. So then in this case, in the span of the 10 years, they are trying to reduce the carbon emissions 20 to 25% with respect to the 2005. So it is said that the biggest impact will be felt by small and medium entrepreneurs. So in this case, what will happen? They are not able to develop their own technology to control the carbon emissions, or they are going to be other kind of green belts. They are not carbon sinks are not developed. That form the India's manufacturing base, but also carbon intensive. So then what will happen? Because of while you are implementing, so to implement this 20 to 25% reduction, mostly they are going to be concentrating on the small and medium enterprises. They also do not have the capital to shift quickly to clear the fuels. Steel and cement industries and traditional carbon intensives could be under stress. So in this case, what will happen? The small and medium enterprises are going to be facing taking the biggest problem. And then in this case, the shift quickly to the clear fuels. Now we shifted from BS4 to BS6. So then automobile sector is going to be facing a lot of problem regarding this case. So nearly 75% of rural and 25% of urban population still burn wood. So this is the figures are going to be suggesting that. So the fuel, that means for the burning of suppose the preparation of the food time. So this situation is going to be emitting. So in any event, the world can assure that India per capita emissions will never rise above the average of the developed countries. The proposed approach to be development of the mitigative measures for India. So then in this case, so we need to care about it. So we are trying to find the triggering point of the carbon emissions. It's not only from the industry and automobiles. At the same time, these rural and urban areas also, they are using the wood as going to be their as a fuel to preparation of the food. So the China also, in this case, they also promised to reduce the carbon emissions from 40 to 45% by 2020 from its level of 2005 levels. So then this is also the great step they have taken towards the reducing the carbon emissions. So then how to cut US emissions faster? In this case, what will happen? This is going to be a developed nation. So then what will happen? They started emitting a lot of carbon emissions in the past. And they got it lot of awareness, and they understand that the climate change and their adverse, so they are trying to reduce it. So in this case, there we can see here in 2000 the 50, they want to reduce it. They want to reduce to the, suppose this is the actual in 2005 estimation, the carbon emission still it is going like this, then 2018, so then it will go to, they want to make it, this one is going to be a flat. So then what will happen? So the pledge under the Paris Climate Agreement by the US is going to be, they have to reduce the carbon emissions. It's going to be 2050, they have to go with the around 1.5 metric tons of the carbon emissions are going to be there. But if you see that previous slide, there is going to be a 2018, that flat, they are trying to make it flat. But if they will implement the Paris Climate Agreement, this is going to be a drastic reduction of the carbon emissions in the atmosphere. So there is a carbon tax also they are going to be planning in this case. If the United States adopt the economy-wide carbon tax similar to the British Columbus, which started small and is to be raised 37.5 per ton, the emissions would start to fall according to modeling by the energy innovation and energy policy. There we can see. So if they are going to be implementing like British in the USA also, there is going to be a sudden fall of these carbon emissions are going to be reducing. That's going to be the gray area there we can see here. That's going to be the carbon tax is going to be reducing the carbon emissions. So they are going to be, they produce all their electricity from the zero carbon resources. As we know that mostly the electricity they are generating from the thermal steel plants, thermal power stations. So then what will happen? We need to reduce the carbon emissions, means we need to adopt the non-conventional electricity generating devices like wind turbines, hydraulic turbines, next one solar electricity, the next one nuclear power plant. They have to depends on this part. So if you adopt it, so initially we implemented the carbon tax, certain amount is going to be reduced, and now we are implementing the zero carbon emissions sources. Then what will happen? This is the amount of the carbon emissions we can reduce from 5.3 to 4.1 to like that. So that means these are going to be indicating the carbon emissions in the metric tons. The second one, do what these countries are doing. Norway's aggressive electric vehicles incentives to reduce the carbon emissions from the automobiles. So then in this case what will happen? So if they are going to be go with the electric vehicles, then this is the amount of the carbon emissions we can reduce it. The first one, we are implementing the carbon taxes. The second one, we are generating the electricity through the zero carbon emissions. And the third one, we are talking about the electrical vehicles, so that we can reduce the carbon emissions. The China has set efficiency targets for our industries. So if they are going to be reducing in this case, so they are also implementing the carbon taxes, and they have given a certain permits only, is not the beyond that, so that the certain amount of the carbon emissions also reducing from the China. So then the California also has its own implementation to reduce the carbon. Can you see that from top to the current trend, it is going to be decreasing the California style binding the codes. And then United States and the Canada also, they are going to be trying to reduce it. So they are implementing their own kind of the emissions controlling. And here is the hydrofluorocarbons. If you are not using the hydrofluorocarbons in the atmosphere, so then what will happen? This is the amount of the greenhouse gases are not going to be emitting. Then automatically it is going to be reaches to the around 2. So the 7 policies and the predictions, there we can see here that together these 7 policies would slash greenhouse gases emissions. It is around 29% below in 2005 levels by the 2025 and 50% by 2050 according to the energy innovation climate policy modeling. So at a sudden, all of a sudden, it is not going to be a control, because we are triggered the different carbon emission sectors, and then we started to reduce that part. So already we do have seen those are going to be how. One is going to be carbon taxes, they have to implement compulsory. The next one, electricity must be generated from the zero. And the next one, different countries, they are going to be adopting, and they need to reduce the carbon emissions. That's also they are talking. So here, what is the main outcome from this one? We need to see how we can reduce the carbon emissions. So then what is the mitigative measures we need to take at the global level, and how we need to distribute to the different countries to convert as the adaptive measures. so that we can convert into. Then how to cut US emissions faster in this case, because we know that the US has its own the nature of the emissions, so that they are triggered, these are the different sectors they identified, they are trying to reduce it. They produce all their electricity from zero carbon sources, that's we have discussed, and 7 policies, the predictions also we do have seen. So this way we can reduce the carbon emissions with effectively by collective hands. So thank you. So to make you educate, more number of videos we are doing, so to get it, please follow the channel.